Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Let's talk about it. So yes, we finally reached the end, for now, of the Mission Impossible series. And honestly, it does in fact feel like the end of an era. I was surprised at how emotional I got by the end of this film, because even though I haven't been a huge mega fan of the Mission Impossible franchise from its very inception, I still feel like it's such an iconic film franchise that has been around for like 30 years at this point, and you can always rely on it to come back every few years to get a brand new installment of Ethan Hunt's crazy ass life. It has actually been really cool to have these new installments of the Mission Impossible franchise to look forward to every few years, and so the idea that we won't be getting that, or at least anytime soon, is very sad. But alas, all good things must come to an end, and here we have the second installment to what's essentially a two-parter, and was originally called Part 2, but they got rid of that name because Part 2s are famously disliked by general audiences. But Final Reckoning continues on the story that was set up in Dead Reckoning back in 2023, where you had the introduction of a brand new antagonist. This time, not a human being, but rather an AI program. An AI program that was designed somehow in order to destroy the world some way, and chaos ensued from there. But even though I don't understand the intricacies, the ins and outs of how this AI program works, all I do know is that it is a really hard mission to try and defeat it. Almost impossible, one would say. And so of course there's only one man for the job, one man that we can trust to take this AI on, and that is of course Tom Cruise's iconic character, Ethan Hunt. And of course, just as with many of the other Mission Impossible installments, you have a lot of running, you have a lot of swinging on things, you have a lot of action sequences, and you also have a whole bunch of shots of female characters looking shocked, looking scared and frightened for Ethan as he embarks on this crazy ass mission. And of course, you also have the running theme of Ethan Hunt refusing to allow any member of his team to die, refusing for them to make the ultimate sacrifice, and being prepared to make the sacrifice himself in order to get the mission done. All of our favorite hallmarks of the Mission Impossible franchise are present in this final installment, and it makes for a very enjoyable thrill ride of an action movie. Now, another thing that I've always come to appreciate about the Mission Impossible films is that they've always felt like a cinematic achievement. You always get the sense that these films are made to be seen on the big screen, and here we have no exception, with Christopher McQuarrie returning to helm the final installment of this franchise, as he has done for a few of the other installments previously, and he is well within his ballpark at this point. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows what Tom Cruise likes. Okay, with the two often seen together, they are very strong partners in this franchise, and so Tom Cruise has clearly chosen Christopher McQuarrie to round out the latter part of the franchise because he likes the direction that Christopher McQuarrie gives for the franchise. And Christopher McQuarrie does not disappoint for this final movie. This film feels cinematic, okay? It has a weight to it. It has brilliant cinematography. The way that the action sequences are shot is brilliant. It's absolutely investing and invigorating. You have great color palettes throughout this film as well, which bring this whole world to life. It make it feel very real and tangible. It's not all desaturated and gray. Christopher McQuarrie has expectedly become an expert in shooting these Mission Impossible films so that they feel grand and larger than life to fit the scope of the missions that Ethan Hunt is going on. And this is crucial, of course, because everyone's favorite hallmark of the Mission Impossible franchise is not just the action sequences in general, but rather the crazy ass stunts that Tom Cruise commits himself to doing for each of these films. Each film, especially after Ghost Protocol, had a signature stunt stunt associated with it. And here we have several. One that comes to mind was the underwater sequence, which I have no doubt Tom Cruise did in real life. I doubt that he did like the whole sequence all at once, because he would have died. No, he would have died. He'd be dead. Okay, but I have no doubt that they somehow managed to get him to do that sequence in real life, you know, underwater. Hey, if Billie Eilish can do it, then Tom Cruise certainly can. And he's done a whole kind of breath holding exercise in a previous installment. I think it was like Fallout or something. He's done that before, but this time it's just like this extended sequence that takes place underwater, and he's just in like underwear and he's swimming around. And it is absolutely crazy. And so of course you need an experienced director like Christopher McQuarrie and the DP that they had on this project in order to capture that, because if Tom Cruise is going to go to the effort of risking his life every single scene of the film, then you best capture it well to make it worthwhile. Which is why for my viewing of the final installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, I finally did something that I have been meaning to do for ages and ages now, and that is I went to see this film in 4DX. Guys, I saw Mission Impossible 8 in 4DX, and let me tell you something, this was life-changing. This was life-changing. Guys. So listen, comment down below and let me know if you've seen a film in 4DX. Let me know what film it was as well, and if you think it was worth it. But I'm telling you, if you have not seen a film in 4DX and you have ever considered doing it, now is your chance to do so. If you are anywhere near a cinema that has 4DX screenings, please do not walk, run like Tom Cruise to see Mission Impossible 8 in 4DX, because I'm telling you, it is wild. We were shaking around, we were tossed and turned like salads, we had air kind of pushed out from the seats somewhere. Every time a gun was shot, it felt like they were shooting you. They had water coming down. When there was water on the screen. There was even a sequence that takes place in like Siberia, like in the middle of a snowstorm, and they had wind on. They had wind, and then they even had snow falling down. Guys, I know that this is my first 4DX experience, so I can't really compare it to any other film, but I do feel like Mission Impossible 8 was made to be seen in this format, because it had it all of the different elements of 4DX that they advertise. This film was able to incorporate, like the way that it was designed for the screening was absolutely perfect, to the point where that underwater sequence that I just talked about, where Tom Cruise is swimming around trying to put the key somewhere, it was further enhanced by the 4DX experience because we had the water spraying on us, and also because we were tossed and turned like we was doing the swimming ourselves alongside Tom Cruise, and it was phenomenal. There are definitely moments where it borders on violence. There are definitely moments where I was scared for my life. I was like, is this seat gonna kill me? Is this seat literally gonna kill me? Like, am I gonna be thrown into the air? And there were definitely moments where the whole audience was like oohing and ahhing and laughing because we were violently going through it. But I must say, this film was made to be seen with 4DX because it just enhanced the experience tenfold, in my opinion. And the main reason why this screening fits so well with the film is because the Mission Impossible films are so well known for action sequences, right? And for the crazy stunts that Tom Cruise does. And so when you pair that with a 4DX screening that really comes to life during these action sequences and during these stunts, it makes for a match made in heaven. So like I said, if you have not tried a 4DX screening before, listen, okay, I was a newbie too, and I loved it. It was absolutely crazy. Although do read the health warnings and the precautions, because it is kind of serious. It's like going to a theme park and a cinema at the same time, so you need to be careful of that. And if you know that you're afraid of like that kind of movement, then it's not for you. But if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, now is the time, because this film is custom made for it. Essentially, the Mission Impossible franchise is the sort of theme park franchise that Martin Scorsese was talking about. He originally directed that comment towards the MCU, but I disagree. I think it's actually the Mission Impossible franchise that's giving theme park, and that's because whilst we have the action sequences and the incredible stunts that Tom Cruise does, that's always been well and good and something that's definitely theatre going worthy. But when it comes to everything else surrounding this franchise, like, oh, I don't know, the story, the characters, all of that is kind of by the by. All of that is just tangential to the main event and the main attraction, theme park attraction of the franchise. That makes it feel even more like a theme park franchise. I mean, when it comes to the story of Final Reckoning, most of the time I was checked out, not gonna lie. Most of the time I was checked out because it is extremely exposition heavy. The first hour or so of the film is literally just a recap of Dead Reckoning, almost as if they're afraid that most of the audience haven't seen Dead Reckoning. It did famously underperform because it came out on the same week as Barbenheimer, and so perhaps Tom Cruise and co were afraid that like no one would remember what happened in the previous installment because hardly anyone saw it, although it did still make about $600 million at the box office. Like, it wasn't a huge flop, but that's kind of what it felt like with the first hour of Final Reckoning, kind of rehashing the same stuff that we saw in the previous film. And not just in Dead Reckoning, but also in all of the Mission Impossible movies. There was a lot of replaying a bunch of key iconic moments from the Mission Impossible franchise. Some of these moments were replayed several times. I like the iconic Tom Cruise kind of, hovering sequence that we got in, I think it was the first Mission Impossible or the second one. That was repeatedly shown throughout the film. And whilst I completely understand it, because we do have a final installment of a 30-year franchise and they want to pay homage to all of the wonderful iconic moments that came before, still though, it does mean that Final Reckoning as a standalone movie kind of falls apart because so much of it hinges on rehashing the previous film and also the entire franchise overall. But the recalls and rehashing of previous Mission Impossible movies wasn't the only issue with the story here, because you also had an extremely exposition heavy script. Like, the exposition was a lot. The exposition was a lot. I tended to tune out during those scenes, not gonna lie. And that's not because the actors weren't doing a good job. I mean, here we have Angela Bassett. Oh, Angela Bassett returning as the President of the United States in this universe. I wish I lived there. I wish I lived there. But she was great. She was absolutely phenomenal, and she delivered her lines with great gravitas and seriousness, and wonderful, absolutely iconic. And the whole cast is brilliant here, whether they're returning like Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames, who have been here from the beginning, but also with the new additions like Hannah Waddingham, Nick Offerman, and Tramell Tillman from Severance, who was particularly phenomenal in this film. I also really came to love the character of Tapeza, who was portrayed by Lucy Telagajuk. Apologies for mispronouncing her name, but she was great. I really loved her. What a wonderful character, who had a lot more play than I thought she would, but I was glad to see her on screen. So there were really phenomenal performances by great actors in this film. But it's just a shame that I didn't care about the words coming out of their mouths. Like, I didn't care whatsoever. It was all exposition, sci-fi gobbledygook, okay, that made absolutely no sense. Yeah, I was completely checked out during those scenes. Although I will say one shortcoming of this film taking its story more seriously than the audience does is that we have to sit through a lot of these moments that are projected as being super emotional and super high stakes, and oh, what will Ethan Hunt do? Is he gonna make it? Is he actually gonna be able to complete this impossible mission? Like, we have to sit through a lot of that when ultimately the stakes aren't that high, because we know that he will he will of course he'll make. It's Ethan Hunt. It's Tom Cruise. Of course he's gonna make it. Like, for instance, you have the underwater sequence that takes place roughly halfway through the film, and you're supposed to be at the edge of your seat wondering if Ethan's finally gonna make it. Like, is he gonna come out of this alive? And like, of course he is. There was never any doubt that he was gonna come out of that water alive. Like, that was never, the thought literally never crossed my mind. So unfortunately, whilst the stakes are presented as being super high and extremely emotional, and Angela Bassett's son is on the line here, I never really bought into it, because I know how this is designed to play out. Like, I know what's about to happen. We're certainly not going to lose Tom Cruise halfway through this almost 3-hour movie. So like, let's just cut the crap and get to the next let's get to the next action sequence, okay? Because we know what we're all here for. Now, in the end, Ethan Hunt is able to do the impossible one last time after an epic plane ride stunt that sees him fighting against Gabriel, who wants to take control of the AI program for himself. And Ethan needs the key that's around Gabriel's neck so that he can complete his mission and incorporate the AI somehow into all of the servers and stop Armageddon somehow. Again, a whole bunch of gobbledygook, okay? But he goes head to head against a snickering, conniving Gabriel, who seems extremely unserious in the final act of this film. But he wins, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. And he's able to come out of this final mission alive alongside most of his other teammates, apart from Ving Rhames' Luther. And honestly, I was surprised by that ending, because even though I didn't expect Ethan to die halfway through the film, I kind of figured that maybe he would kick the bucket by the end. But the fact that Tom Cruise was like, hell no, I'm not even going to give you that. He ends up living in the end, and he walks into the distance, into the tunnels of Trafalgar Square Station, which isn't really a station, by the way, in London, but love that. It used to be a station, and it should be a station because it's such an iconic landmark. But anyway, we move. But that's how they choose to end this story, with Ethan Hunt very much alive, but finally having earned his freedom from the IMF, and it's very well deserved. Have you seen what he's been through? And so he just walks into the distance, knowing that his teammates are there should he ever need to call them again. And I think that's kind of sweet. I think it's kind of cute, and it definitely leaves the door open for Tom Cruise to return to the character in a few years or so. Although his death wouldn't have even precluded that from happening, because hello, have you seen what's going on in the John Wick universe? So listen guys, all in all, I had a really fun time with the final installment, for now, of the Mission Impossible franchise. I'm really sad to see this franchise go, but I can say that they really put their all into this final film. They gave us a whole bunch of callbacks, a whole bunch of flashbacks. They gave us a very intricate network of storytelling that I couldn't really follow and I wasn't very invested in, but still the story acted as a decent vehicle to get us to the destinations that we really wanted to go to, and those were of course the action sequences, which were bigger and better than ever, including some really cool sequences underwater and up in the air that Tom Cruise delivered on. And the fact that I got to see this in 4DX, guys, the fact that I was shaking and quaking and twisting and turning alongside Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt made for all the more memorable and impactful cinema going experience. And so with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Mission Impossible Final Reckoning a 7.5 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Mission Impossible 8, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this movie down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch your videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.